Jerusalem is bleeding. A Ukrainian refugee is unalived in cold blood. And in Chicago, children are dying every single weekend while fake activists scream about everything but saving lives. This world is upside down. The lies are thick and the hypocrisy is louder than ever. And too many are afraid to call it out. Well, I am not. On this episode, we are going to rip the mask off of the lies. From terror in Israel, from the chaos in America, to the only solution that can save your soul before Judgment Day. And by the way, if you're looking for commentary on the tragic death of Charlie Kirk, I address it in a separate video. So right here, right now, stay with me until the end, because this one is going to be fiery. And if you came for comfort, you are in the wrong place. If you came for the truth, let's get started. Wait, before you get back to the show, I just want to let you know that we have launched Nissim Black Store. All you have to do is go online, order yourself one of these amazing mugs, God is King, with a matching t-shirt. We have a whole plethora of different shirts that are all about representing God wherever you go. As believers in the one true God of Israel, it is our duty not to hide, not to back down, not to shy away from expressing our faith wherever it is that we go. If you want to go and walk righteously before your God with a nice t-shirt, with a nice sweater, with a mug that's reminding us constantly that God is here with us, go to nissimblack.store and make sure you get yourself some merch. It really helps support this channel and everything that we're doing and everything that we plan to do. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. I thank you all for all of your support. Okay, back to the show. So I want to start here today where my heart is really heavy and where it's burning the most, right here in Jerusalem. With this past week, terrorists opened fire on innocent people in the holy city of Jerusalem. 6 lives is what I was told before. I'm hearing that it may be up to 7 because there were those who were injured that had been taken. There was families obviously shattered, dreams destroyed. And yet too much of the world it's just another headline, something that they just scroll past, and they don't feel the blood on the streets, and they don't hear the screams of the families, and they don't, see the children left behind without parents. And I want to tell you right now, this is not random. This is not resistance either. This is not desperation. This is indoctrination. This is ideology. This is a system that produces death. It nurtures hatred. And it tries to sell the whole entire world that this is justice. I want to be very clear with all of you. Terrorism does not happen in a vacuum. Terrorism is not born in the desert. It is bred in the living rooms, in the classrooms, in the sermons, and news propaganda. This is all throughout the society. And we all know this. We can stop faking. We've seen the polls. After October 7th, when Hamas butchered 1,200 innocent men, women, children, 70 to 80%, I believe the numbers were, of Palestinian Arabs supported them. This is not a fringe. That's a mainstream. This is what happens in this society. And we can ignore it if we want to, but this is what is really going on in the society. And the world needs to hear the truth. So when you hear Western media start talking about this and they say, oh, the majority of Palestinians don't want Hamas, they're victims too, they just want peace, ask yourself, then why did they elect Hamas in the first place in 2006? Why did they celebrate in the streets on October 7th? Remember, it was not just Hamas that came into these areas, into these kibbutzim, butchering, murdering, badgering, kidnapping. This was not just Hamas. This was also the Palestinian population that came out of Gaza with them. Video footage. So why did their schools teach about Jews and teach that they're pigs and they're monkeys? Why do they name the streets after terrorists? If they want peace, why are the streets named after these terrorists? Why do the mothers say on camera that they're so proud when their sons blow themselves up on buses full of women and children? This is not an exception. This is the rule. And it's time that we stop lying to ourselves. Now, the world wants to lecture Israel right now. The world is lecturing Israel. And they say that if you keep fighting, you'll just provoke more terror. I want you to hear how insane this actually sounds. That's like telling a woman who's being abused by her husband, well, if you just stop resisting, he'll calm down. It's not compassion at all. This is enabling evil. And I'll tell you something else. When people say, oh, this will just keep happening if you don't stop fighting them. What are they really saying when they're saying this? What are they really saying? This is just who they are. Violence is baked into them. You should accept it. Now that's racism. That's demeaning. That's basically saying that these Palestinian Arabs are born killers, so don't provoke them. And I myself, I reject that. I'll tell you, here's the real truth. This is a culture problem. This culture has chosen death. They have chosen Hamas. They have chosen jihad. And if they want a different life, they need to make a different choice. It's as simple as that. But until then, Israel has every moral right to defend itself, and not just defend itself, but to uproot the ideology that fuels this bloodshed. I want to give you some of my own solutions, because too often we just get these despicable people on TV describing the problem. People say, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to deport millions of people? And I say, why not? Why not? Nations have relocated populations before, some tragically, sometimes unjustly. But if there's a group living inside your borders that does not recognize your right to exist, that actively tries to kill your citizens, what nation on earth would tolerate that? I can't think of any. Maybe Europe. But think about this. Think about America after 9/11. This is the obvious comparison. So this is why it's always brought up. This is why I always bring it up in others. It's an obvious comparison. If you can imagine that 80% of the Muslims in New York City had openly said that they supported Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda right after the attacks of 9/11, would America have tolerated that? I have to ask for back then, obviously, because today we're living in a different America, or you're living in a different America. Would they have just said, well, we'll just keep living with them and hopefully they'll change their minds? Of course they wouldn't have. America would have moved heaven and earth to eliminate the threat. But Israel is told, from everybody almost, except for Trump maybe, no, you have to live with this and you have to endure this. You have to, take the moral high road. All of this is nonsense. Israel's moral high road is to protect its citizens. Israel's moral duty is to make sure that Jewish children can walk to school without the fear of being harmed. That families can shop in the market without the fear of there being a bomb. That people who worship God can go and pray at the Western Wall without being shot at. That is morality, and that is justice. And another thing, unfortunately, will probably make these liberals uncomfortable. Deportation has to be on the table. Because if someone in this land is actively supporting terror, if they are waving Hamas flags, if they are posting on social media praising murder, if they are raising children to be martyrs, then they do not belong here. Period. You don't get to live in a country while calling for its destruction. None of it makes any sense even. I'm trying to understand by which metric this will be okay. And let's not forget, Gaza was given to these Palestinian Arabs. Israel pulled out in 2005. They uprooted thousands of Jewish families, handed the land over against their will to their own citizens. And what did the Palestinians do? Did they build schools? Did they build hospitals? Did they build businesses? These things are things that you do when you are trying to build up your people, build up your land, when your true objective was actually peace. That's what a population does. They didn't do that. They built terror tunnels. They stockpiled rockets. They trained children soldiers. They turned Gaza into a launch pad for jihad. This is the reality. And we have to keep saying it until people get it inside their head. So don't tell me or anybody else that this is about land or it's about wanting peace. It's not about land. It's about an ideology. This is the way people think. This is their culture. It's about theology. It's about the hatred of Jews. It's been drilled into them generation after generation. And until that changes, there will be no peace. The blood in Jerusalem cries out. It cries out against the lie that these attacks are understandable. This is reasonable resistance. It cries out against all these cowardice nations who are lecturing Israel, why they do nothing to stop the terror itself. And it cries out for the justice, true justice, God's justice, the justice that says evil must be confronted and not be appeased. And as Jews and as believers, we know where this is headed. The prophets already told us. They said that the nations will come up against Jerusalem. Keep watching this reoccurring theme. They said that the truth is going to be twisted. Keep watching because it's happening in front of our eyes. But they also told us in the end, Hashem will vindicate his people. So we take courage. Even as we mourn, we will take courage because we know that Hashem is still on the throne.
My name is Dr. Rinat Green. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I'm a mother of children with dyslexia and the founder and executive director of Kol Koreh, a nonprofit organization that supports children struggling with dyslexia and other language-based learning disabilities. I started Kol Koreh about 12 years ago after making Aliyah and realizing that children with dyslexia fall through the cracks in the educational system.
There's a war of kids who have challenges with their learning, dyslexia. These are kids that are already falling through the cracks, and the war has only made it worse. There's not a lot of organizations that are out there on the front line like Kol Koreh.
Before my son came to Kol Koreh, he would sit in a classroom. He wouldn't understand anything in English and in Hebrew. His friends were progressing around him. They were reading books. He used to just sit there daydreaming and struggling. And he came home and he used to say he hates school and he doesn't want to go, and he used to fight learning. And since Kol Koreh, he's realized that he can learn.
I've been here, part of this learning center for about 7 years, and I've been feeling the impact. We work with kids countrywide. Whatever kids feel about themselves as learners, they really feel about themselves as members of the community.
So I'm imploring you all, my audience, to help Kol Koreh. Please help this organization continue to do their holy work. Now let us turn to America. Because while Israel is bleeding, unfortunately, from its terror, America is dealing with rot issues from within. There was a Ukrainian refugee, a woman who fled war. This lady escaped the war that was going on in Ukraine, came to America, and she was hoping for peace and for safety. And she was brutally unalived by a man named Carlos Brown. This woman left the country at war only to find war in the streets of America. And the problem is there's no outrage over this. Where are all the marches? Where are all the hashtags? Did we spray paint her face on the side of the building yet? Did we organize anything yet? Where are the CNN town halls about this? Where are all the say her name chants? Silent, absolutely silent. Why? Because the suspect wasn't a white cop. Because the suspect wasn't a MAGA extremist. Because the suspect doesn't fit the script. And so her life and her death doesn't count. Not in the twisted America of fake social justice warriors, at least not in their book. And this is what gets me fired up. Because if Black lives actually mattered, if they really meant that all Black lives mattered, if justice really meant, like, for these people, that justice for all people, then this poor woman's murder will be the headline of the news. The so-called champions of compassion will be weeping for her. But they're not. They don't care. They only care when they can weaponize a tragedy for their own political gain or against their political opponents. So let's be real. The same people who scream defund the police are the same people who retreat behind gated communities with armed guards and private security, while all the ordinary people, like this young Ukrainian lady, they pay the price for the lawlessness. They pay the price for them defunding the police. They pay the price for this rhetoric. They live in safety. The social justice words, they live in safety while everybody else lives in fear. That is not justice. That is hypocrisy. And this isn't new. This is a pattern that's been going on with these people. If you think about Chicago, Baltimore, Philadelphia, every weekend the body count rises. Most young Black men killing other Black men. That's what most of these scenarios are. Children are caught in the crossfire. Mothers are burying their sons. And yet the outrage machine is silent because it's not useful, because it doesn't fit the agenda. And that's because admitting the truth that the greatest threat to Black lives in America is not white supremacy, and it's not Donald Trump, nor is it the conservative movement. It's crime, culture in the Black community, and chaos from within our own neighborhoods. That truth would destroy the whole entire narrative in a second. So therefore, they don't put this on TV. And please make no mistake, it is an industry, billions of dollars poured into BLM organizations. Not to help the families of the victims, not to build schools, not to rebuild any of the neighborhoods, but to buy mansions in California and bankroll lavish lives, very similar to what was happening with the leaders of Hamas. This is why they support each other. It's the same exact thing in the playbook. We live off the suffering of the people. We make money off the suffering of the people. We, meaning BLM, Hamas, Hezbollah. Everything that they can to support the lavish lifestyles of these so-called activists who long ago stopped caring about the people they claim to represent. They're all con artists, spiritual arsonists. They light fires of division, and then they cash in on the smoke. So when a Ukrainian refugee is murdered, they have no use for her. She doesn't bring in any donations. She doesn't fuel the race-baiting machine. She doesn't advance the narrative. So they bury the story, and the media plays along because the media is no longer about truth. It's about propaganda. So I will tell you this. If you care about justice, you'd care about this woman. If you care about human dignity, then you'd care about this story. Because it isn't about skin color. This is about what's right and what's wrong. This is about life and death. And the minute we start picking and choosing which lives matter based on their political utility, then we lose our humanity, which many of these people, I submit to you, have lost their humanity a long time ago. Now, some people will say, but Nissim, crime happens everywhere. You can't generalize that. And I agree with you. I can't generalize about individuals. There are good and bad people in every community. But you can't deny the statistics either. We have a problem in the Black community with crime. Let's quit lying about this. Let's not talk about this. Is not Black culture. I'm going to try to pull this up. Yitzi, if you find this, pull this up. I saw a video. I think it was maybe from the early 1900s. I think it was maybe somewhere in Nebraska or something like that. It was after a business meeting. There's a few of these different videos. And the reason why I saw this is because they were using AI technology to go back and to color old films. And I saw, person after person, and it was obviously a black community. One was coming out of a bank, other one was coming out of a business meeting. And you saw everybody suited and booted, dressed very nicely, looking very well taken care of. You're talking about business owners, people that were handling their business. A black culture that was admirable and beautiful. So I was saying to a few of my friends who was joking on me, and tells me because I'm a Hasidic Jew, I dress like a European. So I showed them this video and I said, listen, I'm dressing like my forefathers did. This is the real black culture. What we are dealing with today is a complete imposter. And this is how the world sees us. This is how the world sees black people. The crime rates don't lie. So let's stop lying. The cultural collapse doesn't lie. Fatherlessness, it doesn't lie. And the refusal to deal with these realities, to actually address the root cause instead of hiding behind slogans. That refusal is what keeps us in the cycle. It's not racist to talk about crime. It's a righteous thing. Because if I don't actually deal with it, if I don't deal or say what the actual problem is, I will never deal with it. Because if you actually love people, you'd want them to live in safe neighborhoods. If you actually cared about black lives, you will want little black boys and girls to grow up without dodging bullets. And if you actually cared about the immigrants and refugees, you will want them to find safety and opportunity and not violence and despair. It's preposterous. The whole thing is crazy. And it's hard to see that people, like, sometimes I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, these people can't be serious. Are they serious? And I don't think they are. There's an agenda behind it. And there is a large amount, unfortunately, of the population that cannot see through this. America's elite class, the media, the politicians, the activists, they all are thriving off of chaos. They need the division. They need victims because victims justify their power. If everything were to be peaceful, think about this. If everything were to be peaceful, if people actually live with respect and safety, these activists will be out of business. You understand? I'm not going to go into the pharmaceutical business, but I mean, hint, hint. So they keep fanning the flames. They keep telling you that the system is rigged, right? They'll keep telling you that you're oppressed because they benefit from you. They're going to keep telling you to hate your neighbor because a divided people is a people that's easily controlled. And the result of stories like these, unfortunately, this refugee who thought that America was a safe ends, a safe place, a lady like this ends up no longer alive because the streets aren't safe, because the activists don't really care, because the politicians will not act, because the media won't tell the truth. And that's why leadership matters. That's why voices of courage matter. That's why law and order, it's not a slogan. It's a survival. There's no community, no civilization could survive without law and order. And all of this brings me to my next point, which is Chicago. Because the same forces that buried this woman's unaliving are the same forces screaming against Donald Trump, sending in the National Guard to Chicago. They don't want order. They don't want peace. They want power. That is it. They want power. And they don't care how many people are no longer reunited with their family, as long as they can keep the control. So unfortunately, we're in this situation where there's so much going on in the world. Hashem should help us. Let's honor this young lady, this young Ukrainian refugee. Let's honor her by telling the truth that they don't want to be told. Let's honor her by refusing to let her life be forgotten because it doesn't fit the script. And let's honor her by demanding more from our leaders, more from our communities, more from ourselves, because the silence is complicity at this point. You are complying. And I myself, and I'm sure many others like me, we refuse to be silent. Wait, I want to ask you, do you ever feel like you're alone? Maybe you live in a community, maybe you live outside the community, and maybe you're going through things that it's very hard for you to discuss with the people that are within your community. I mean, we all struggle from time to time with faith, with our belief in God, with our struggle and our walk, and ups and downs, anxiety, depression, mental health, whatever it is, we all have struggles sometimes, and we need somebody to talk to. So today is probably going to be your lucky day. The wait is officially over. Glory Nation is here today on the 21st anniversary of my wife and I walking this journey together. We are opening up the doors to something special. This online community hosted by Nas.io is a place where we go deep in faith, prayer, and personal growth. You'll get exclusive behind-the-scenes content, first listens before anything ever drops. You have Zoom hangouts with me, release parties, classes, merch drops, discounts on all of it. Whether you're walking strong or struggling to stand, Glory Nation is your home to grow. Join now. I can't wait to connect with all of you on a whole new level. Let's build this together. Glory Nation is live. So click on the link in my profile to join, or go to glory-nation.com. Click join now, and let's change the world together, beginning with ourselves. So let's head straight into Chicago, because when we talk about crime and chaos and we talk about collapse, Chicago is ground zero, as they're calling it now, Chirac. It's a play on Chicago and Iraq. Some of y'all who won't get that till Tuesday. So every weekend, the numbers are the same. There's dozens of people shot, children caught in the crossfires, families torn apart, and it's been this way for years. Chicago is supposed to be one of America's, and has been known, honestly, as one of America's great cities. A city of jazz, of history, of culture, of business. But under the liberal leadership, unfortunately, it's become a war zone. So here comes along Donald Trump. And let's be clear, he's the only leader with guts. If we're just being honest, he's the only one to say what needs to be said. To send in the National Guard, restore law and order, protect the people. We see what just happened in Washington. These are successful campaigns. It's not success. They will lie to you and pretend to you, like in the media, like there's outrage about this, but it's not true. Look at just what happened on CNN.
My first reaction was that this is a good thing. I think that the governor as well as the mayor should be on board with it, just so we can get a bit more of security in Chicago the way that we need.
The crime has dropped since 2024. Do you feel like the city feels safer?
No, not at all. No, especially with the police being defunded.
They thought that the population is going to go with them because that's what they're feeding and shoving this down their face on TV. But people are not stupid. The people want you to protect the people, because if Black lives really mattered, here we go again, then safety has to matter first. This thing is, sometimes I feel like I'm just repeating and saying over the obvious. That's what they used to say about John Madden, when he used to, comment on the NFL games. He's just stating the obvious. Sometimes I feel like a Black John Madden. I'm stating the obvious. And this is where the hypocrisy explodes at, because the same activists who march under the Black Lives Matter banner should be the first people cheering Trump's plan, because he has a plan that's going to preserve more Black lives. They should be the ones that are begging for the Guard to come in, to stop the shootings, to bring peace to the neighborhoods where mothers have to sleep in bathtubs so that they don't get hit by stray bullets. But instead, obviously, they fight it, and they're going to scream oppression, and they'll scream, occupation. Sounds very, very similar to what's going on here in Israel. And they call it authoritarian. Why? Because people don't actually want peace. They want power. That's why they jump. They accuse Donald Trump of the very thing that they want themselves, which is power. Or forceful use of that power. So I will put it plain for you. There is nothing racist, nothing oppressive, nothing authoritarian about wanting children to be able to play outside without being murdered. There's nothing racist about wanting grandmothers to sit on their porches without being shot at. There's nothing racist about wanting even the immigrants. They're fighting for the immigrants and refugees and working families, all of them, to live in safety. That's not racist. You have all of these, professional elitists, primarily on the left. They have no interest in real righteousness. This is fake, false righteousness. They thrive on chaos and emotion, because once I have you emotionally, I can control you. The moment I can get you to stop thinking about things from a logical standpoint, and the only thing that you have left in your bag is your emotions, then I can easily control you. I know how to, add fuel to the fire. These people, in order for them to be successful, they need the crime, because the crime keeps people desperate. Desperation keeps people dependent. And the dependency keeps people voting for the same failed policies and the same politicians over and over again. So here's the difference with a person like a Donald Trump. He's not worried about being politically correct. He's not worried about how the media will spin it. He knows he's out after 4 years. He knows he's out. He's not, maybe you could say he's worried about legacy. He for sure is not worried about coming back into the office, regardless of whatever Steve Bannon and those who are on his bandwagon are talking about. He's not calculating every move to make sure that he just doesn't offend other people, which is the type of leader you need in this type of situation. He sees the problem and he says, fix it. What so many other people could have did when they were in that position, but they did not do it. He, like everybody else, sees the bloodshed that's going on in these streets and he says, stop it. That is leadership. Do you think that the families in Chicago care about the politics of it all? That's my question to all of you. Do you really think, if you were to put yourself in their shoes, that you'd be worried about who the politician, what side they're on? You think that the mother who just buried her 14-year-old son cares whether it's a Democrat or a Republican who gave a policy that keeps bullets from flying through her window? She does not care. She wants peace. She wants to live in safety. She wants her child alive. And this is the plan from Donald Trump that gives that chance to send in the National Guard. So miss me with all of that. Listen, I'm sorry to stop the show for a second. I just want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Market Ding. Look, in today's world, if people can't find you online, then you don't exist. That's where Market Ding comes in. They're a digital marketing and SEO company that used to dominate healthcare, but now they dominate just about everything. Whether you're running a business or a brand or even a podcast like mine, Market Ding knows how to get you found fast. So don't just show up online, grow online. So visit marketding.com today and watch your growth online explode. Okay, back to the show. Let's take a step back. The same people who hate the idea of the National Guard in Chicago are the same people who cheered when the Guard was deployed for their causes. I'm going to say that one more time. The same people, right, who are against Donald Trump's plan to send in the National Guard into Chicago are the same people who cheered when the Guard was deployed for their own causes. I want to take you back to 2020. Cities burning, looting, riots, billions in damage. Nobody cared at all about any of those things. Then January 6th happens. January 6th, which, overly boisterous, embroidered, making, being made to be something bigger than what it actually was. Trump offers to send in the National Guard, still rejected. Then all of a sudden, what happens. He's criticized for not sending in the National Guard. They screamed at Trump for not sending in the National Guard fast enough. But when it's about saving black neighborhoods from black criminals, suddenly it's a problem. Suddenly it's racist. Do you see the hypocrisy? Don't get me wrong. This is not about smearing black communities. I'm from these type of neighborhoods. Not Chicago. I ain't from Chicago. I ain't going to claim to be Chicago. I got a lot of family from Chicago, but I ain't from Chicago. But I am from the hood. And contrary to the narratives that have been painted over the last, 6, 7, 8 years, that the biggest threat to the black man is a white officer, which is not true. I grew up in the hood. I was way more afraid of other guys I knew in the neighborhood from down the street and around the corner than I was about the police. I was only afraid of police if I knew I was riding dirty. But I did not grow up afraid of the police like I was from other people who look like me. So we can lie if we want to, but everybody in the hood know that's not the truth. We are living in a world where we have music that glorifies unaliving other black men, a culture that glorifies women. Not only are they dressed in horrendous outfits, selling themselves for nothing, fathers not at home, abuse at an all-time high, drug abuse. I saw in the Uncle Tom 2, shout out to my boy Chattel Jackson, who's working on a crazy film right now anyway, but it was so impactful to see neighborhoods, black neighborhoods, that at one point were full of self-owned businesses, from dentists and doctors and clothing stores and entrepreneurs, that if you fast forward to the day, if they were not gentrified, these neighborhoods, when you go back to those same neighborhoods, you see loitering, crime, junkies on the very same streets. Black culture has been robbed. It has been hijacked. So when I'm speaking about this, I am not speaking about black communities, and I don't need to pander. I'm black. But this is because I come from that, and because of that, I do have love for them. I'm going to tell the truth. Because the truth is that Chicago's black neighborhoods have been abandoned. That is the truth. They're abandoned by liberal politicians who only show up when they want to campaign, abandoned by BLM activists who use them as props for their own fundraising. They are abandoned by the media that hides the body count, right, because it doesn't fit the narrative. But the very person that they hate, Donald Trump, he's the only one that's not abandoning them. He's the only one that said no more. We're going to bring in law and order. We're going to bring in protection. We're going to bring in peace. That is love and that is justice. It's love for America and it's love for these neighborhoods. And I'm going to flip the question back to the critics. If you really cared about black lives, what's your solution? Because we've been seeing what you've been doing. What is the solution? If you don't want the National Guard and you would like to continue to defund the police, then you have to give us a plan to stop the shootings. Because we've tried decades of liberal policies, welfare dependency, failed schools, revolving door justice systems, and it has not worked. So can you please give us a plan? Silence. Because they don't have one. Because their plan isn't to solve the problems. Their plan is to exploit problems. And here's the beauty of Trump's approach. It's common sense. It's the same approach every good father takes when chaos breaks out in the house, when children are fighting, when there's danger in the home. You don't sit back and say, well, maybe they'll figure it out. No, you step in. You have to lay down the law. You have to be a father, which is what a lot of these people don't have. You have to restore order. And that's the reason why he's sending in the National Guard. It's the father figure that America needs right now. Because it's not cool to be a man. It's not cool to have a father. It's not cool to be a father to your children. Toxic, sick society. So we need the extra policing. And the reason why this scares the left so much is because if Trump succeeds in Chicago, if he restores peace where Democrats have only produced death, then the whole liberal project collapses. Their lie that conservatives don't care about black lives, that Republicans are racist, that Trump is a dictator, it all gets exposed. Because the truth will be staring everybody in the face. It was Trump who cared enough to save lives. It was Trump who cared enough to restore peace. It was Trump who actually delivered on what he said. And that's why they fight him so hard. And that's why they demonize him, because if people wake up to see the truth, the game is over. Now, I know some people listening are going to say, but Nissim, the military shouldn't police civilians. And I hear that. I'm not for martial law. You know, I know what it's like to be a conspiracy theorist. I still got my questions about martial law and everything else and you know, military, police, and civilian. I understand it. I hear it. Nobody wants a permanent military presence in American cities. Nobody wants it. But this isn't about permanence right now. This is about intervention. We are intervening. And this is about an emergency. This is about saving lives in the short term so that communities can rebuild for the long term. Because without peace, there is no future. And I'll say another thing, that the media itself always frames this like it's an attack on black neighborhoods. But that's a lie. The National Guard would be those people who are saving those neighborhoods, protecting the families, guarding those lives. They are not the enemy. They are the shield. Chicago deserves better. Black America deserves better. Black people for sure have contributed to this country, to America, in major ways. And they deserve to have better and not continue to be exploited. And Trump is the only one with the backbone to actually give that. So I'll say it again loud and clear. If you really care about black lives, if you really care about justice, then you should be the loudest voice demanding for the National Guard, because silence is complicity and complicity kills, like I said. Hey, what's going on? I had to stop you for a second because I want to tell you, if you like what you're hearing and if you're getting value from what you're hearing, please like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us get this out there. And ultimately, you know what we're trying to do? Spread the name of God all throughout the world. So like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so that anytime I put out a video, you are going to be informed first. Now, with all of this going on, terror in Jerusalem, all the chaos in Chicago, hypocrisy in America, we have to stop and we have to ask the most important question. And this is a question that honestly I wrestle with, and I think we all have to wrestle with every single day. Is where do we stand before God? Because right now, the Jewish people, we are preparing for Rosh Hashanah, which we understand to be the day of judgment. It's not just a holiday. It's not just apples and honey and shofar blast. There's a lot of non-Jewish people, when they hear Rosh Hashanah, they may have heard of all those beautiful things about the honey, but really Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment. This is the day that God himself opens the book of life, and he decides who will live and who will die, who will rise and who will fall, who will prosper, who will stumble. And a person has to ask themselves, where do I stand with God? Have I submitted my life to God? Have I given over myself to him? The world is only getting crazier and crazier. And the reason why we're having such a big issue with being able to decipher what is true and what's not true with obvious situations, obvious things that are staring us in our face, it should be very easy for a person to see from almost every single thing that I've talked about. I mean, the Israel narrative, I mean, come on. What's going on in Chicago? Come on. The fact that the media isn't covering what happened to this Ukrainian, come on. Let's get real. It should be so simple for a person to be able to see what's actually going on. What's right, what's wrong. And the reason why we are not there is because we are not with God. We should be able to be very clear about what is right and what's wrong. And the absence of God in our life puts us in this place of gray. The world becomes gray. What's right becomes wrong. What's wrong becomes right. And if you don't get to that extreme, you're at least in a place of being undecided about things that you should be very decided about. And the number one primary way of how we can draw ourselves closer to God is by prayer itself. And I'm not talking about just a little bit. I'm talking about really throwing yourself on God, really praying to him, asking to be able to see what's true, what's not true, submitting yourself to him, staying in Hashem's Torah and his word, reading it, learn your God, know your God. That is the most important mission that we have here on earth, is to get closer to God and to know who God is. It says King David was a man after God's own heart. He wanted to feel what God feels. He wanted to hurt when he heard it. He wanted to have his pain. He wanted to share in that with God. V'shavti beves Hashem kol yemei chayai, to sit and dwell in the house of God all of my days of my life. This is what King David longed for, to be with God. And this, for every single one of us, is our primary mission. Many of us are in the place where, you talk about judgment day. We're dealing with judgment right here in our lives. Things are not going the way that we need them to go. Things are not panning out the way that we want. We feel, some of us have dedicated our lives to God, and we're not feeling the benefits of what rewards we feel comes from cutting ourselves off from that world and submitting ourselves over to God as much as we've been able to. Still, prayer. Because you got to bring it down. Isaac was promised, Abraham was promised that they were going to have a nation come forth from them that would bless the world. But they had to pray. Isaac had to pray next to Rebekah to bring it down. Abraham stayed on his face before God. He stopped and invoked the name of God. You see it all throughout the scriptures. You'll see that the Jewish people as a whole, although promised that they would have to go and live in a foreign land and be enslaved, but ultimately God would bring them out for great redemption, redemption doesn't come until the God of Israel hears their cry. So prayer is the means by which we draw closer to God, and it's also the means by which we bring down the blessings that God has stored for us. So the prayer in itself ultimately is making the vessel. Without the vessel, there's nothing to pour the blessing. And this is not going to be done by 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 10 minutes. You have to make it a part of your life to spend as much time with Hashem as you possibly can. That's the only way to be saved from this onslaught of lies, of deception that's happening right now in this world. Pure deception. It's the trick of the hand, the sleight of the hand. And this is what's stopping people from being able to see the truth. And that is the reality. That is the reality. When God has something for you to do, the tool to bring it down is prayer. If a person wants to be able to decipher the truth, you have to pray. So as we approach this Rosh Hashanah, my heart's message is simple is to submit your life to God. Don't wait until tragedy forces you to bow your knees. Don't wait until chaos breaks out and breaks down your door. Don't wait until the doctor gives you bad news, God forbid. Go now, pray now, repent now, because tomorrow is not promised. And this isn't just for Jews. For anybody who believes in God, anybody who believes in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If you want clarity in these times, if you want real peace in your soul, when the world is shaking around you and you want to be calm, you need Hashem. You need prayer. You need to anchor yourself in something that's internal. Because I will tell you, politicians will fail us. Movements will fail us. Even nations will fail us. But God will never fail us. So I want to tie all this in together. That here in Jerusalem, as we mentioned, innocent lives are being taken because of a culture of hate that has been allowed to fester. In America, a Ukrainian refugee is unalived while the outrage industry stays silent because her death isn't politically useful. In Chicago, children are dying every weekend while activists, they scream against the very solution, which is law and order. This is what can actually save them. And all the while, the world keeps drowning in more hypocrisy, more lies, and more confusion. But here is the truth. None of this is surprising because when a society turns away from God, chaos follows. This is natural. We saw this during the time of the flood. We saw this in Sodom and Gomorrah. We saw this. When people reject his ways, death takes over. And when leaders refuse to stand for truth, evil fills that vacuum. And this is why this moment right now is so urgent. That's why we cannot afford to be silent. That's why we must speak truth. And this is why we must pray, even when the world mocks us for being religious, mocks us for serving God. We will have the last laugh. And we must anchor ourselves in God because without him, nothing else will stand. So my challenge to all of you as we enter into Rosh Hashanah, the day of judgment, it's more bigger than the Jewish New Year. That's just what we give for the Hallmark cards. Don't just watch the headlines. And don't just complain about the chaos. Ask yourself, where do you stand with Hashem? And are you ready to meet him? Are you ready to give account for your own life? And even bigger than that, where can I be useful for God? Because the books of life and death, they are opening, whether you're ready or not. So let us pray. Let us return to God. Let us anchor ourselves in the only one who can save us. And then we can live boldly. We can live with clarity. And we can live with courage. Because at the end of the day, the choice is very simple. You either serve God or live trying. I'm out.